Welcome to Meet the Human podcast 2026, first episode. Thank you for following last year, and hopefully we have a great season also this year. We are starting very strong with our friend Chakib. Chakib currently is a chief technology officer in a multinational global company. He's originally from Venezuela. Also, he lived in the US quite a long time, in the Middle East. Now he's based in Asia, but Chakib is a global citizen, and he's bringing us his views about how to progress in life, both personal and professional, from his point of view, which is quite deep and rich. And as a CTO, he's also very much involved in studying, understanding the role that AI plays in our lives, in our corporations, and it's giving us also very nice insights around this subject. So this time we also go to Singapore, where we meet Chakib for the first podcast in 2026. Meet the Human, Chakib. Let's go to Singapore. Let's go.
All right.
Wow,
Let's do
Chakib.
it. 1, 2,
So
3, 1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to Meet the Human podcast, episode 14, I think 14. And today I have my friend Chakib. Chakib is a person I met not that long ago. I think you will discover that very soon you can get acquainted with him, because he has so many stories of such a variation of stories. His life is very intense, and hopefully will be also very intense going forward. So Chakib will tell us everything about him and his views on humanity and values and AI. So Chakib, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Luis. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to see you again. It's always great to have good conversations with you. First time with cameras.
First time with cameras. So we will try to forget the cameras, right. And we'll just have our usual good chat. So Chakib, tell us, again, I always tell people, many people hopefully will know you from the viewers. Many people will not know who you are. When this podcast is watched 10 years later, also maybe new people will see you. So let us understand, always thinking about your origins, which I think are very rich, and where you're coming from, a bit going backwards to then coming to today's Chakib. As in that journey, if you can describe it, and I may ask you a few questions depending on what you uncover for our audience. Thank you.
So who I am, right? My name, Chakib Abi-Saab, originally from Venezuela. As you would imagine by my name, I have a Middle Eastern name. The reason for that is my grandfather, my father's dad, was Lebanese. He moved to Venezuela when he was younger. I do not know the exact conditions as to why he moved, but he did. He married a Venezuelan woman. My dad was born from that relationship, and his brothers and sisters, etc. Interesting enough, I come from a very much Latin American culture. Although my dad was the descendant of a Lebanese, he was never taught, neither tried to teach us either the language or the cultural aspects of life in the Middle East or Lebanon. So me and my siblings are Venezuelan people with Arabic names, 100%. So I grew up in Venezuela, in a small town. It was a shell town, before Venezuela nationalized oil and gas. Shell had some particular locations there. So I grew up in a shell compound type of environment until I was 17. I moved to the US at 17 to go to college and the university. I had my first marriage there. I am divorced. I am married for a second time now. I have 2 beautiful daughters out of that first marriage in the US, and 2 beautiful daughters here in Asia from my second marriage. 4 daughters in total, which can be problematic, but that's for a different podcast. I started my career in G-Tronics. It used to be Wang computers. They were purchased or acquired by G-Tronics. It became G-Tronics. I worked there for several years. I started doing technical support, and I grew to be the manager of the biggest call centers they had in Houston, Texas, and in Massachusetts. I later joined Baker Hughes, oil and gas, where I worked for several years.
In which country was this?
This is in Houston, in the US.
And Getronics as well?
Well, when I moved to Baker Hughes, I was in Getronics in the US, yes. And then I moved to Baker Hughes, also in Houston. I worked there for 10 years. I started as a technical support analyst, then I became a project manager, then the head of data centers for Baker Hughes. Then I became the manager for Latin America. And eventually they sent me to Asia for a 2-year project of expansion of technical support. I was supposed to be there for 2 years. I stayed there for 10 years. When the time came,
I share some experience.
Yeah, so when the time came for me to go back, I chose not to go back, which was, it created some very complex situations in my life because I lost my job, partly because of that.
Oh.
And but I have luckily had a God on my life all the time, and I was able to find something better that completely transformed my life, which was to find a job in Bumi Armada Berhad, oil and gas. And then later moved to Singapore, Saudi Arabia after that, now back in Singapore. So I have lived in South America, North America, Asia, Middle East, and I have led several teams in Europe. So I'm a bit of a melting pot of cultures.
Wow. By now, I think everybody is half lost. Okay, let's rewind a little. Wow, okay. Chakib, I knew a bit of a story, but now it's complete. I really have all these pieces of a puzzle. Wow. So let's go back to moving to the US for college. To study what subject did you do in the US?
Okay, interesting enough, I moved to the US because my dad worked in a PDVSA, which is the oil and gas company in Venezuela. Oh. They sent him to the US for a couple of years as an expat. So I moved with them, with my brother, sister, and my mom. And when they went back, I was already going to college. So I stayed. When I first went to the US, my goal was to become a pilot. I never really thought to study business. One day, however, a friend of mine invited me to this nice event where they were giving speeches about the potential that you will have if you go to business classes. and you know, that one night when I listened to the speaker, I said, I'm going to study business. And so I did. So I have a bachelor's in business management and a master's in international business. MBA with a concentration in international business, both from LeTourneau University in Houston. And I did my college time in Houston Community College. I also lived in the University of Houston while I was sort of learning English. It's still not complete, as you can probably tell.
Well, American English. Yeah.
American English, yeah, Texan.
Texas English,
That's
even
right.
even a version of American English. Yeah. You did very well. You sound American. Yes, so you did
well,
I think. So that was the move to. Okay, so you moved to the US with your family, and then suddenly, okay, your career went into that.
Well, then they went back, and I stayed because I was already in college, right? And I started my career in technical support, as I mentioned, and eventually I met some friends who introduced me to Baker Hughes, and I transitioned to Baker Hughes, oil and gas.
So somebody else in my podcast had this similar experience. Wanted to be something, becoming something else because of a same stuff, because of one interaction with a person, one interaction at the right time, and suddenly switch. Do you remember that moment where you saw? I mean, if you're sure about I want to be this, and suddenly switch into something else, how that happened?
Look, I think in life, you sometimes are impacted by being in the right place at the right time, or wrong place or right time, wrong time, whichever you call it. I have had many instances in my life where the rest of where I have lived has been determined by specific one little moment in life. And to give you one example, not so much on the professional side, but on the personal side, I went 14 years ago, not 14, 13 years and a half ago, to Indonesia to invest in real estate. And I went to this fair where they had several companies of people looking for investments, from people like me. And I saw one, and the name was La Casa 8. And it attracted me because La Casa 8 is a name in Spanish. So I went to talk to them. Long story short, they had a big screen in the background, and in one of those pictures of past events that they were showing, my wife was there eating. And I asked a friend, who is she? And he said, well, she's one of the owners of the company. And I told him, I really want to meet her. I think she's going to be my wife. Long story short, 4 months later, we were married. And we're still married. We have two beautiful
4
daughters.
months?
Yeah, so,
Wow.
So one moment in my life changed the rest of my life. I mean, one small decision. Equally, for my career, I could give you many examples, but I am a firm believer that it is those little thorns that sometimes you don't realize completely change everything else in your life. Who you meet, what you do, what will happen to you.
Okay, maybe this question, maybe my next question is difficult to answer, but I mean, I wonder if are you aware of your? So you seem to have a ability to have a tremendous clarity on certain moments for certain decisions. Not everybody has this clarity, or at least clarity and action. You have all combined then.
Well, I have to be completely frank. I don't see myself as having always complete clarity. I think I have made good decisions, partly because I'm willing to take some risks. That's part of my personality, and partly because I've had a bit of luck, and I'm quite honest and frank about that. I don't think in life you should ever think that you have accomplished so much because you are the absolute best person. Sometimes that's not the case, and I can tell you that's not the case in my life. But I've had those particular moments that changed my life. So it's not always about making the right decision with full clarity. It's about having leap of faith and having the courage sometimes to make decisions that others won't. Courage, I think, is a critical value of my life.
And since you now bring it to the value conversations, the values, is that something that you think you have taken from your environment or your friends or your family, or is something that you have nurtured just by yourself?
I think this comes from my father, who unfortunately passed away 4 years ago due to COVID.
Oh.
When I grew up in this shell environment that I mentioned earlier, I saw a really hard-working dad, but many of us have really hard-working dads. The difference with my dad is that most people didn't know that he was sick. He had an enlarged heart, and he was working at 50%. He did not want anyone in the company in PDVSA to know that. So he would work extremely hard every day and come home tired, just straight to bed, laying down while my mom, help him and ensure that he can rest and have the proper food for him, etc. He had the courage to stand and do what the doctors told him he was not able to do. And when you see things like that in your life, you take him as an example, because I think you become you become what you've seen all your life. You see the world through your lenses, and your lenses can only show you what you were seeing since you were little. That builds your values, that creates your personality. Not only the culture, which is a big part of it, I believe, where you were, but what you see at home. So we are, in many aspects, a reflection of how we were raised and the values that our parents showed us, not only told us, but what you saw.
the actions that they took and
Absolutely.
how they were in front of you day in, day out. Yes. I believe your idea of that plus your ability to take risks creates a never-ending flow of opportunities for you. I don't know you enough, let's say, to say that this is your life, but what I have seen from you, I believe you go for some risk, and therefore you put yourself in the situation of having to make a decision, and then you exercise your clarity and you make the decision and you move on. So actually your story, I think, is something that maybe repeats in cycles for you. Or is my appreciation not correct?
Well, the interesting thing is that these risks have also created a lot of problems sometimes. Huh? I have only told you about the times when I was successful. And the reality is that I have failed many times. Now, the way I look at it, and the way I explained it to my dad when he was alive, is that for those who know baseball, imagine that it's time for you to bat, and you have a fantastic pitcher, and he's throwing really hard balls for you to hit. And I always try to swing hard enough for a home run. And I had many strikes, but I knew that I only needed one home run. So that is the analogy of my life. Many strikes with a couple of home runs. But to say that, have always had the clarity that leads me to success is not necessarily accurate. I'd love to believe that. Even when I had my own company, I came to the point where I almost went bankrupt at one point in my life. Luckily, I was able to exit and my life changed. But I have been in situations where I was this close to completely over. I had no money at some point. I had no family. I was alone in Asia after my first divorce. And I thought some days, my life is over. I do not know what I'm going to do. But then again, those one in a lifetime little moments, one of those happened and transformed my life once again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very interesting. So let's have a bit of a thought about what I ask everybody in the podcast. Your concept, your idea of what is humanity these days. I say these days because this is episode 14, and I see people thinking about humanity in the past and then humanity moving forward. But what is your view on humanity, whether it is in the past or moving forward?
I think I would separate it, right? Humanity from humans. I mean, it is a fact that we are humans. But your humanity is the result of your values. Is how do you interact or manage your life in a way that maintains the human beings as the first instance rather than just results. And I focus on the humans very heavily at work and in my personal life. When it comes to work, I have been lucky enough to work with teams that are usually overachievers. But a big part of overachieving is because I treat people the way they want to be treated. I treat people with respect, with dignity, and I respect their professional skill sets. And what that means is that as chief, which I've been in C-levels for the past 15 years at least, what you say has a major impact on people's lives. So number one is I let the experts that I hire bring the ideas and do their job, but also I give them enough space to do the job in the best way that they know of. If you hire the right people, you give them purpose and a good objective, and you let them do their job by removing obstacles for them, they will not only succeed, they will overachieve, not because you are telling them, but because they want to. And they want to because they're motivated, they have a purpose, and they have someone leading the team who believes in them. So the biggest and most challenging part of humanity from a professional perspective, I think, is to not forget that humans go before results.
Mm-hmm. You're making me reflect on things I have also experienced in my very short time that we share same employer, but also afterwards. Do you think people want to overachieve? Do you think that's nature in people?
I think everyone wants to overachieve. I think it's a matter of motivation. Where the failure happens is in many cases, not always, but in many cases it's leadership. It's very easy to blame people for not performing. But if people have no sense of teamwork, they don't feel trusted, they are not really empowered, and they don't have the ability to have fun while they work, you will never have an overachieving team. That's the case with everyone. I do not know anyone in my life that goes to the office one day thinking, I'm going to slack and not do my job. Everyone wants to do their work, but people want to be recognized. People want to be respected for what they bring to the table. And that's an interesting concept personally, because I work in technology. Why do I say that? Working in information technology is probably one of the hardest jobs people can have. Most people don't know. They think of the IT guys fixing the computers, etc. But when you look at today's global corporate environment, 80% of what's being delivered, whether it is products, services, is being done in the background by the IT department, by the innovation team, etc. But they rarely get that recognition. That goes to the team that is fronting the services that are being offered. Now, you have a team that is working 24/7 in the background, and they get no recognition. And in addition to that, when they get calls, it's because people are very frustrated. Because let's be honest, you don't get calls because the email is working great, thank you.
Yeah, to send good news. No, we don't.
You get calls when the email is not working, when something is down, so that 1% of the time. And that's the part that most people remember. So as a leader of those teams that have to go through that on a daily basis, it is my responsibility to never forget that I need to remind them every day of the value they bring, the human side, and ensure that they have the ability to also have a bit of fun at work because they have the right motivation, the right environment, and they're proud of what they achieve, even if the rest of the organization doesn't appreciate that. And that is a reality in every single organization that I know of today. Sad reality, but it is what it is. That's part of being in technology.
And then on the idea of concept of values, human values, and you mentioned your key one that you got from your father. I wonder if you can, if you wish to enter the subject of how the human values, or do human values relate to corporations' values, or should they relate to the corporation value, or is the corporation's values, do they need to be different than the human values? And this question is maybe not so easy to answer, but do you have a view on the relationship between those two? Maybe what they are, but maybe what they could be or should be, in case you have some, because Chakib is the author of several books that I will put on the description on leadership, innovation, technology, and investment. So I think, Chakib, maybe you have a view today, but also you may have a view on evolution. Can you give me your ideas around this?
Yes. Well, the first thing that I'd like to mention on that topic is that businesses are there to make money. Let's not forget that part. Yeah. So it is important to advocate for the values, which I am a heavy advocator, if that's how you say it, for that. But also to never forget that a big part of your job and why you're hired is because business need to be successful in what they do. Correct? So with that part aside, understanding that businesses need to make money and you need to help them achieve that. The value part, I don't see as very different from your personal life, just the focus is different. The human side of you, the ability to have empathy. You need to have empathy and understand what people are going through. It's very easy to judge someone because they didn't perform in the last quarter without understanding that maybe they have a wife that has been sick or a children that has been in the hospital. You don't know what's going on in many people's lives. So, empathy, the ability to help people have fun, that is as important in your personal life that at work. I want to go to work every day and have a laugh. Yes, we have to have tough, difficult topics sometimes, and we're working. But if you can have a little bit of fun in the place where you spend 10 hours a day, something is wrong with you. Trust, delegation. I have children and they love it when I trust them. And you have to show some trust so that they learn how to live their lives and sometimes make mistakes. It's no different at work. When you are at work, you need to enable people to be able to fail sometimes. If everyone is too afraid of failure because failure means the end of their career, then no one will ever innovate, for example, if you're talking about technology. So I believe the values that you have at home equally apply at work. The difference is the approach you take because the results that you are looking for are different. But your person continues to be who you are. I think the most critical part, or potentially the most critical value, if you can call it a value, is honesty. When you are an honest person, that doesn't mean that you are always going to be right. But when you are honest, people know that you speak from the heart, that you say what you mean what you say, and even when they don't agree with you, they will respect what you're saying because they know there is no bad intention, there is no hidden agendas. You are being honest and you're being you. That has been my experience in my personal life and in my work life. And I don't want to suggest for one moment that I have always had it right, because I haven't. I've made many mistakes in my life. I've fallen many times, but I have learned, right? And now as a 52-year-old man, close to 53, I think experience have taught me the importance of ensuring that people feel trusted, people feel empowered, people feel cared for, personally and professionally.
So there should be, and it's healthy that there's a correlation between them two, and actually a very good point, understanding businesses, the purpose of business is to make money. Otherwise the businesses disappears and everybody suffers. So, so thank you Chakib, for that. And if you, if it's your company, if you go into your own business, would you be able to give me maybe your top 2 or 3 values that you would like to have because reflects maybe also who you are or how you want your business to be because it's yours?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you call it as a value, but the first thing that I always do is I hire people that I believe are better than me in their area of expertise. If they don't know more than I do, then they probably shouldn't be there, correct? So I hire people that are better than me, and I really make an effort to let them do their job. Of course, we have to agree on what is the objective. What are we trying to achieve? But the how, they come with that experience. I hire them because they have done it before. So I want them to teach me how to do it better, potentially faster and cheaper than I have done it myself. That's why they are there. So the first time is that hire people that you believe are better than you. The second part is trust. Trust that they have the best interest in the company by heart. If you don't believe that, they should not be there in the first place. You shouldn't hire people to have to prove themselves. You hire them because you believe that they bring what you need. 3, people that are respectful. And respectful doesn't mean that you cannot be brutally honest, but how you communicate matters. And this is particularly interesting because I have had that fault myself many times. As a Latin American by origin, and part of my life in Texas, and I tend to say what I think sometimes without thinking of how to make this more tactful. And when you work with some cultures like Europeans, for example, some Europeans, and sometimes in Asia, then you might come across as a rude person, not because you're trying to be rude, but because culturally things are different. So you want people that are aware of cultural differences so that they can show respect, communicate what they need to, because we need to get the job done, but in a respectful way that people can absorb and learn from rather than have a conflict. And interesting enough, I always pay attention to people who listen to what you're saying in interviews rather than to listen to respond. Because there is a very big difference when you're talking to someone and then you can tell very fast they just want to respond because it becomes like a competition or even an argument, rather than listen to understand so that I can comprehend where this person is coming from. I think those skills are particularly critical for teams to build trust that creates long-lasting relationships, and that long-lasting relationships create an environment where people overachieve because they're also having fun. What's life without having fun?
Boring, yeah. Wow. So I'm going to give you a list of your values based on what you have told me. I will try. So Chakib, you value courage very much. You value honesty very much, open, honest. You value trust or trusting, if that could be value. And then you would value also respect.
And empowerment.
And empowerment. So those, so maybe I'm just making the list of Chakib's core values. Is that?
Well, I think there is so many values that you need to have. Some are more important than others in different aspects of life and in different moments. But I think overall, I would agree with you that those are the top 4 or 5 values that are top of mind that I'm always aware of.
And thank you, because that gives me space to ask you the next challenge. It's a question, but I think it's a challenge I ask everybody on.
Okay.
Can you tell me a story where you have caught yourself exercising or implementing one of these high values that has generated some positive impact?
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to sound repetitive, but I will go a little bit back to the example I was giving you, right? When you work in information technology, a lot of people are in the background demotivated because they are working 24/7 and many times not really recognized, or they don't feel recognized by the organization because they're in the background. So by working close with them, listening to what their concerns are, bringing the style of leadership that recognizes what they do, listen to what they have to say of how we can improve, and let them do their job, you find that those teams move very quickly from a low-performing, non-engaged environment to a high-performing, highly engaged environment. They become proud of what they are doing. They start talking about it. They compete among themselves, and they feel that what they are doing, or not just feel and realize that what they are doing is creating a lot of value for the rest of the organization. Whether people come and tell them or not, it doesn't matter, because they learned it themselves, they feel happy with what they are doing, and they learn to understand the reality that you cannot change everyone, but if you understand the value that you bring every day, then you're going to feel much better. So every single time I have come to any multinational organization to lead technology, this is exactly the same scenario. You have fantastic people, highly demotivated, that become high performers, that overachieve. Not because I told them how to do things, but because I gave them the purpose. And they usually have shown me that they will outperform your expectations time after time, which makes me a big believer in the human aspect that I was discussing earlier today. So never forget the human part. Yes, we need to focus on results, but if you keep in mind that human aspect and respect people for who they are, they will get you those results. Unless, of course, you have the wrong person in the team, which sometimes, unfortunately, does happen. But those are more exceptional cases than reality. It's mostly a management leadership challenge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And maybe just because I know you also a little bit, and I know that you are also have a good experience and practice in this subject called innovation, which is a subject which is not easy, especially in corporations. I just want to take this chance that you're here, Chakib, and can you give me some idea of how to make innovation happen from thinking, okay, in this podcast, from we are people, we are human beings working together in corporations. What is the trick to make innovation happen in a corporation?
I wish I could tell you there is a magic wand, but there isn't. The innovation is necessary in every organization, or you will get disrupted. That I hope we are all clear. The complexity is that today we live in an environment where SLAs and ROI are critical to everything we do. And when you are doing innovation, sometimes you have to have a little bit of faith and a gray area that allows you to have some testing and some failure. But that testing and failure means resources, time, money. And it's very difficult to get leaderships in organizations that are traditional to understand that now we need to dedicate some of the resources and funds we have to intangible objectives that could become transformational, but are very difficult for you to explain what the benefits will be. And I sometimes use this example, and people don't like it when we're having conversations about innovation, because they say, well, I need to have a very clear ROI or we don't approve this particular project. And I always ask them, what is the ROI of using the internet? Because that's the right example. You know that you can't operate without it, but to get an ROI for using the internet is very difficult. And particularly when it comes to new generation tools like AI, etc. You get some of these large language models that are popping up pretty much on every application that you purchase today. And I believe they're very helpful. But how do you justify that ROI? Because what might save you 1 hour a day will probably save me 15 minutes a day. So how do I explain that ROI? And also, the other challenge is people from older school business thinking are from the belief that if you are able to create efficiencies, those efficiencies are not for people to do better, but how much am I going to cut from my existing cost today? And that's very challenging, because if you save 1 hour a day and I save 15 minutes and somebody else saves 30 minutes, that's not exactly in a specific chunk that you can say, okay, now that all these tasks are done by a robot or by AI, I can replace people. So that creates a very complex environment. Innovation is necessary. Innovation will continue to have a cost. Technology will continue to increase in cost and will be more and more important as time passes. Those are the sad realities that people don't want to understand. And if you are not one of those organizations that is adopting technology to do everything you do better, faster, and cheaper, of course, within boundaries, right? You don't want to jump out of a building without a parachute. But you need to have boundaries, and you need to be able to test and try and disrupt yourself. Because if you do not disrupt yourself, somebody else will. So the biggest obsession for me when I'm working in corporate, in any company, is usually not the competitors. Yes, it's important to know what the competitors are doing, because that gives me an idea of what's going on in the market. But I'm always concerned with, are there 10 guys or 5 guys in a garage somewhere building our business from scratch without legacy and able to duplicate our business with a mostly automated environment that can do it for 30% of the cost and still have double the margin we have? And if we are not thinking in those terms, then we will likely get disrupted at some point. And it's very complex because sometimes when you are leading innovation, the feeling is almost like you are begging organizations to let you help them because they cannot see it. Many traditional companies around the world have one big challenge, and it is that their biggest strength is also their biggest weakness. What does that mean? You usually have a large part of the leadership of the executive team that come from that organization. They have moved on with time. That's fantastic and a strength because they know that business like nobody else. But it creates a major challenge because they cannot see how to do it differently because they know better. They've seen it always, right? And those are the organizations that don't move forward as fast as they should and get disrupted. And I can almost guarantee you that 99% listening to this podcast will nod and say, this is probably the same situation in my organization.
Wow. Thank you. I thought it would be a very difficult question for you to answer with clarity, but again, Chakib, thank you for your answer. It's so clear. I think many podcasts later, you and I will just come back and we'll talk about innovation only.
Absolutely.
That would be a very wide subject. That's fascinating, and the relationship between innovation and people, how this work together. And anyway, I really hope one day we'll talk about this
I would love to.
more widely. Yeah? So then, Chakib, now I think we just go into the next part of the podcast, which is when I ask people to, once we discover who you are, although we haven't quite discovered it yet because Chakib has such a rich life that I know only a fraction of it, but it's so interesting. But anyway, maybe also for another podcast. So let's go into your views of artificial intelligence as a technology that is part of life, part of our day-to-day life that affects us moving forward. And because I know that also that Chakib is very, well, I think has some expertise on the subject that other people don't have because of your profession and what you do. Perhaps you can help us first to give us a bit of a helicopter view, and later in the podcast, maybe we go more into details of what you see coming next, which we don't see, but you, I think, are already starting to touch. So first, let's go into what is your helicopter view of how AI is impacting humanity, and what is your personal take on this?
That's a loaded question. AI is absolutely transforming the world we live in today. Everything that we do is either powered by AI in the background, and for those who know and take advantage of it, they start to use AI in everything we do and they gain a competitive advantage. That's simple. Now, AI, in my view, as of today, because this might change in the future, is augmentator of human capabilities. And I say that because we need to be careful with the headlines that we read. We are, in many cases, victims of the headlines. And what that means is that we see company X or company Y let 3,000 people go because of AI, and this company let 4,000 people go because of AI. But when you actually go into the details, what you find is only 1% of those people were let go because of AI replacement, and the other 99% were let go because they were hiring people that knew AI better. So, yes, automation is reality. Yes, there will be roles that are highly repetitive that can be replaced with AI today. But AI will create many more jobs than what they are removing, at least as of now. And I say that because this might change in the future. Will it continue to progress? Absolutely. Now, I was 3 weeks ago in a major AI event in Barcelona. And one of the very interesting concepts that I learned a bit more about is what people are now referring to as synthetic intelligence. Most people outside of the technology world, and many in the technology world, have not yet learned this term, but you will hear it a lot more in the next few years. Synthetic intelligence is similar to a synthetic diamond. That is a real diamond with 99% is 99% a diamond, but it was human made. Similarly, synthetic intelligence is going to be very similar to human intelligence with the ability to create data and reason. That will be a game changer, because that means that what we are looking at today as AI agents to augment and in some cases automate some of the tasks that humans are doing will be truly taken over by artificial intelligence. Again, I do not believe that they will replace the thinking of humans, but they will augment our ability to make good decisions, because it will be able to show you the full picture so that you can make a better informed decision. So decision making, in my view, will continue to be what we do for years to come. Now, what is important for people listening is that they do not leave educating themselves about AI to the side, because it's not AI that will take your job. It's someone who knows AI better than you and can use it better than you, therefore can be 2 times more efficient than you, and will deliver a much higher output with much better quality at a much lesser time. So it is critical, in my view, the critical aspect is to know, yes, it will continue to move on. AI is accelerating development of everything. And I do not know if you read the news last week in the US, this Genesis initiative was announced, where the government is partnered with private industries to have these major data sources to be used by AI to accelerate innovation when it comes to medicine and many other areas. And I believe you're going to see incredible benefits for humanity coming out of that. So, yes, it will continue to augment, and we need to educate ourselves and ensure that we are, our families, our kids, and everyone around us is educated on how to maximize these tools of AI that can be very beneficial, not only at work, but also for your personal life.
On the subject of education, you mentioned also previous podcast, there was a question about, so what education should be moving forward? What changes we should do in education? Because we know that this is part of our life. What is your view on what changes we should do in education then?
Well, I don't necessarily, unless of course you are a corporate person who needs something formal, I don't necessarily advocate for everyone having to subscribe to AI courses and things like that. That would not make sense, I don't think. But you need to educate yourself. I, for example, know people that are continuously looking at videos online, YouTube, podcasters, to learn what's happening in the world, how people are using certain tools to more effectively do what they do at work and at home. There is no reason why we can't dedicate some time to explore how I can use AI to benefit my life and how other people are using it. It's about seeing what others, humans are so creative. You are blown away every time you look online and see what people have come up with. And they have great ideas in many cases. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Go online, find out what other people are doing, and you will be surprised with how much content you will find that is useful. Yes, you will find some content that is not. But for the most part, you have a huge ability to educate yourself, because the world today gives you those tools. And if you are not using them, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. And Chakib, you have a view on if we think about education? Okay, up to now, people study IT, or there's some main subjects for IT. And is that also, I guess, will have to change somehow? Do you think more people will need to have IT as a subject that is kind of like maths on school? Do you see that happening, or or do you think this is not necessary, or we're gonna have AI as a subject on itself, and people will choose to study it?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, AI will augment humanity, not necessarily replace it. Because of that, I am a firm believer, based on everything that I'm seeing today, that development and product development is one of the critical future careers. Even if you have an AI writing the code, you still need an expert to be able to review, verify, and edit as necessary. And avoid repetitive task careers. If part of your career is to take information from some receipts or spreadsheets and put it on an email and send to some people, those things can be automated. But when you have to reason, then things change, because then AI will augment what you do. I've also, and I'm not sure that this is something I should say in the podcast, but I always tell people, AI will never replace a good wine. So you can.
That's good to hear.
You can potentially, focus on areas where you know for a fact that human intervention will still be mostly required.
Thank you. And just one, you mentioned creativity before. I heard something recently about the AI we have today doesn't replace human creativity. What is your opinion on this?
I completely agree.
You agree?
I have seen things that people come up with that continue to impress me, from funny things to extremely complex tasks at work, etc. So AI will continue to augment what we do, but the creativity part of the human brain, I do not think could be replaced by any machine.
Ever?
I do not know if ever, but at least for our foreseeable future and our lifetime, I do not see that.
Because the synthetic AI you talk about is more on the reasoning than on the creativity.
Correct. I mean, the creativity comes in many cases from experiences lived and how you see the world through lenses of traveling, speaking to people. And so you come up with things that I do not believe a machine, even if it's sentient, could come up with.
That's good to hear, because I know you follow this subject very deeply.
I do.
Much deeper than me, for sure. And I love creativity. I'm a very creative person, and I would love to.
You're safe. You are safe.
Am I safe? But of course, I use. I don't know if it's called AI. I use AI to exercise my creativity as well. Yeah, very good. Well, thank you, Chakib. Thank you so much. I think at this point, I am stopping because I need to edit this now, because I need to ask you the question that I was asked. I always ask a question that the previous guest requests me to ask the next one. I forgot what the question is. So hold on.
Okay.
I need to check. Same as before. So now we just go into the question that the previous guest asked me to ask the next guest, which happened to be you. And the question is very complex for me. It goes something like, if we should design systems, I think system meant systems we give ourselves to function as societies, and if these systems should be designed from the macro level, from the government down, or since we have now AI tools and individuals maybe perhaps can do other things, if there should be some design from the individual up, that kind of question. You can interpret the question yourself, and then give me your personal answer, Chakib.
Well, I think the answer is yes, of course. I think we should take advantage of new generation technologies to continue to improve our own systems. We need to look at it in a macro level so that, similar to this Genesis project that we were talking a few minutes ago, you can accelerate benefits to humanity. The complexity is not whether we should or not, however. The complexity is, can we? And while possibly technologically, the reality is that a lot of this information is created in silos because the data is compartmentalized, and it is compartmentalized because each one of the potential areas where you need to get the data from see that data as their competitive advantage. So I think one of the biggest barriers and blockers to the AI world today is access to the vast amounts of information that are generated everywhere. Even if you go to the most simplistic part and you look at corporations, where you work usually see their data as their competitive advantage. Will they really be willing to share their competitive advantage with the rest of the world to benefit humanity, even at the cost of potentially having other companies competing with them and beating them because now they understand your secrets? That's a very complex and challenging question that I do not believe has an answer right now. So, long story short, yes, we should. The bad news is, I'm not sure that we can. At least we're not at that point. Even if you talk about sanitizing data and all that, we all know that many companies will not share this, at least not today. And I do not know how to solve that problem except to continue to educate the humanity as to what are the benefits and to potentially find a way to share the benefits of that shared data with all those who share it. What are the incentives? Because otherwise, you're asking people and organizations to adopt potential technologies or solutions that could impact them financially. And I think the biggest motivation I always see for things to happen in the direction you want are financial incentives. So we need to come up with what that is before corporates and governments and people will be incentivized to share without borders and limits.
Thank you. Thank you for answering this tough question.
And that was a tough question, by the way.
And also when you give me the question, I say, wow, this question.
Yeah.
But I think we're lucky, Chakib, that I think you are maybe the right person to answer that question from the myriad of guests that I have had. So I feel lucky. Good. Thank you so much, Chakib. So now it's your turn. You need to think about a question that I will ask my next guest, which I happen to be who that person is, but you just give me the question and then I will formulate the question to the next guest, please.
Well, I didn't really come prepared with questions, but if I had to ask one question, it would probably be, given where we are in the world today, what we see happening in the next 10 years with technology, artificial intelligence, what is that one particular study area that you would recommend future generation to focus on so they can continue to have meaningful careers even while artificial intelligence continues to grow and automate?
Question taken. Thank you very much. And I will ask my next guest, which, unless something happens, is a person that actually lives in Houston, Texas. So,
wonderful.
So I will ask this person. So Chakib, this is the end of our podcast. Do you want to close? Do you want to just give some closing remarks, or?
Well, I just first thank you very much for the invitation. I think it's been a great experience. It's always great catching up. If there is something as a closing remark, I just want people to remember that technology is not the enemy. Technology is a friend. We need to adopt it. We need to take advantage of it. And my advice to every single person, whether you are a technologist or not, is you need to adopt these new technologies or you will find yourself in trouble. So I want people to understand that as early as possible, because I believe it's relatively simple to educate yourself about what's happening and how to take advantage of these tools. And I worry that many people still don't necessarily understand the gravity of not doing that. So it's more as an advice to close. Other than that, it's been great. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Chakib. Thank you for already booking a slot in the future. Yes, I really wish to have you back a few podcasts later. So thank you so much, Chakib. Gracias. And this is the end of our chat today. I hope it's useful for all of you. Subscribe to the channel, please. And I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Well done, my friend.
Done, Chakib.
I hope that was
About
okay.
an hour. Oh, yeah.